Thanks for staying with NDTV. You're watching the Monday edition of the World Report with me, Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. A top story this Monday: after 3 days of protests and over 120 arrests, viewers, Los Angeles is still on the edge. And now federal boots on the ground with 500 Marines awaiting deployment orders. But how did things get out of hand and what really happened? Well, it started Friday morning with agents in camouflage swarming the government district, targeting undocumented workers. And what followed was utter chaos. Protesters clashed with police, eggs flew and tear gas answered. By Saturday, the unrest spread to Paramount, a working-class city with deep Latino roots. It is now the frontline, viewers. Sounds of flashbangs going off, rubber bullets zipping, and screams being arrested by federal agents fill the air. Then came Sunday. President Trump federalized the California National Guard. 2,000 troops ordered in without any state approval. In the first time in 60 years, a president has bypassed a governor to do it during civil unrest. While Governor Newsom called it unlawful, Mayor Karen Bass termed it a dangerous escalation. Meanwhile, both demanded the guard to be returned to state control. Meanwhile, crowds massed outside the Metropolitan Detention Center by Sunday afternoon. Tear gas filled the streets. Protesters held their ground with no signs of stopping. The White House, well, it calls them violent mobs. President Trump is calling it a rebellion. Not only this, he may also invoke the Insurrection Act, paving the way for full military deployment. Listen in.
California, are you prepared to invoke the Insurrection Act?
Depends on whether or not there's an insurrection.
There is, sir?
No, but you have violent people, and we're not going to let them get away with it. Well, we're going to have troops everywhere. We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let our country be torn apart like it was under Biden and his auto pen.
We're going to be watching it very closely. And when they spit at people, they spit. That's their new thing. They spit, and worse, you know what they throw at them, right? And when that happens, they have a little statement. They say, they spit, we hit. And I told them, nobody's going to spit on our police officers. Nobody's going to spit on our military, which they do is a common thing. They get up to them this far away, and then they start spitting in their face. That happens, they get hit very hard.
Well, that was Donald Trump. Meanwhile, FBI Director Kash Patel has taken to social media platform X and said that the federal organization needs no one's permission to enforce the Constitution. He said, and I quote here, "My responsibility is to the American people, not political punchlines. LA is under siege by masquerading criminals, and we will restore law and order." Listen in. Moving on, Mayor Karen Bass noted that the First Amendment allows residents to protest peacefully but does not grant demonstrators the right to violence and, in fact, to vandalize property, and those types of actions will not be tolerated. Here's what she said.
Deploying federalized troops is a dangerous escalation, but we need to be real about this. This is about another agenda. It's not about public safety. There's clearly no plan, and there is clearly no policy. I want the people of Los Angeles to know that we stand with all Angelenos, no matter where you were born.
And several Waymo self-driving cars were set on fire and destroyed by protesters in downtown LA. The incident occurred as US Northern Command announced that approximately 500 active duty Marines are on prepared to deploy status in response to the ongoing unrest. Approximately 500 Marines from the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines at 29 Palms, California, are prepared to deploy status should they be necessary to augment and support the DoD's protection of federal property and personal efforts. My colleague Vishal Vivek joins us the latest on this story. Vishal, what's the latest you're picking up, and how close are in fact the 500 Marines to being deployed?
Well, that is correct. And the latest is that the downtown area of Los Angeles has been declared an unlawful assembly area. So that is the latest we're picking up. So that means protesters who have been, scrambling, who have been creating ruckus in that area, they won't be allowed to do so, and there will be strict measures against them. You already mentioned that 500 Marines, US Marines, are on standby to deploy. Already about 500 to 1,000 National Guard are already there, which the current local administration there, especially the governor of California, has termed unlawful and said that they will file a counter lawsuit against the central administration. So that remains to be seen. But the on-ground situation remains quite, volatile. People have been rioting. There have been a lot of arrests. More than 100 people have been arrested, and at least 4 to 5 Waymo self-driven cars have been torched. So all of this is happening, and it is far from under control.
Well, thank you so much for getting us the latest there, Vishal. And of course, we'll keep on following the story very closely. Now, shifting focus to Southeast Asia, where according to the World Bank, India has brought a record number of people out of poverty. The picture is quite contrasting, however, on the other side of the border. Now, this, as the latest projection on Pakistan says, nearly 45% of its population still lives in poverty, and 16.5% in fact lives in extreme poverty. In a significant feat under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, India, on the other hand, has made key strides in the last decade in reducing its extreme poverty rate, which fell to 5.3% in 22-23 from 27.1% in 2011-12. This is according to the latest World Bank data that has been revealed only recently. Now, about 75.24 million people were living in extreme poverty in India during 2022-23. It's a massive dip, viewers, of course, from the 344.47 million back in 2011-12. In West Asia, Israeli forces stopped a Gaza-bound aid boat and detained Greta Thunberg and other activists who were on board early Monday. Now, they were enforcing a long-standing blockade of the Palestinian territory that has in fact been tightened during the war with Hamas. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition, which had organized this voyage, said the activists were kidnapped by Israeli forces, while trying to deliver desperately needed aid to the territory. Meanwhile, Israel's foreign ministry cast the voyage as a public relations stunt or a PR stunt, viewers, saying in a post on X that the selfie yacht of the celebrities is safely making its way to the shores of Israel. It said the passengers would be returned to their home countries and the aid would be delivered to Gaza through established channels. Meanwhile, take a look at this video where activist Greta Thunberg urged her friends and family to campaign for her return in a pre-recorded message. Listen in.
I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
Top US and Chinese officials are set to resume trade negotiations in London on Monday in a bid to further diffuse tensions over rare earth minerals and advanced technology. Now, this follows a phone call between leaders Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping last week. The two sides are expected to take up a series of fresh disputes, causing friction and also threatening a fragile truce over tariffs. The two countries have exchanged barbs over advanced semiconductors that power AI, rare earths that are vital to car makers and other industries, of course, and Trump's ban on visas for Chinese students at American universities. On the 10th of June, Subhanu Shukla, the 39-year-old Air Force Group captain, will be one of only 4 astronauts on the 2-week Indo-US Axiom Mission 4, or AX-4 mission. India is poised to make a historic return to space as Group Captain Subhanu Shukla, an Indian Air Force pilot and astronaut, will take off as a part of Axiom Space's AX-4 mission. He, along with 3 other astronauts, will leave from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida on the 10th of June, around 5:52 Indian Standard Time, to the International Space Station, or the ISS, that they will dock in 28 hours on June 11th. For his family back in Lucknow, meanwhile, it's a matter of both pride and anxiety. His family is praying for a successful mission, as it will make him only the second Indian astronaut to pilot a space flight since Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma's 1984 mission. The Russian Defense Ministry said in its latest round that units in the 90th Tank Division of the central grouping of the Russian forces had reached the western frontier of Donetsk region and were in fact moving westward in the neighboring Dnipropetrovsk region. In response, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces on Sunday denied Russia's claim, accusing Moscow of spreading disinformation to create tensions among Ukrainians. Now, despite the ongoing hostilities, both sides announced on Sunday that an exchange of the bodies of fallen soldiers was expected to take place in the coming days. Pope Leo XIV criticized the surge of nationalist politics movement in the world as he prayed Sunday for reconciliation and dialogue. It was a message in line with his pledge to make the Catholic Church a symbol of peace. The Pope further celebrated Sunday's Mass in St. Peter's Square in front of tens of thousands of faithful. He also asked the Holy Spirit to break down barriers and tear down walls of indifference and hatred. The Pope did not name any specific country or politicians. Listen into what the Pope said.
E dove c'è l'amore, non c'è spazio per i pregiudizi, per le distanze di sicurezza che ci allontanano dal prossimo, per la logica dell'esclusione che vediamo emergere purtroppo anche nei nazionalismi politici. Invochiamo lo spirito dell'amore e della pace perché apra le frontiere, abbatta i muri, dissolva l'odio e ci aiuti a vivere da figli dell'unico Padre che è nei cieli.
Tens of thousands of people on Sunday gathered in central Madrid to protest against Spain's socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez. They're demanding an early election as his party, administration and family continue to be corralled by a succession, in fact, of corruption allegations. The Partido Popular, or the Popular Party, called for the rally under the slogan Mafia or Democracy in response to the alleged corruption scandals involving Sanchez's political allies and even family members. Now, as demonstrators congregated, carrying placards bearing messages such as Sanchez traitor and government resign, opposition leaders renewed his call for a snap election. Listen in.
Este gobierno lo ha manchado todo. Ha manchado la política, ha manchado las instituciones del Estado, la separación de poderes, la libertad de expresión y la convivencia. Lo ha llenado de corrupción, de cloacas y de mentiras. Y por tanto, ¿qué esperaban? ¿Que callásemos? ¡No! ¡España no se calla!
Over 2 days since Sunday, Italians have in fact been voting in referendum that would make it easier for children born in Italy to foreigners to obtain citizenship and on providing more job protections as well. But apparent low public awareness risks rendering the votes invalid if the turnout is not high enough. The news rules, if passed, could affect about 2.5 million foreign nationals who still struggle to be recognized as citizens. PM Giorgia Meloni, meanwhile, who was seen at the polling booths, did not cast her ballot in the referendum proposed by Italy's main union and left-wing opposition parties. And a New Orleans police officer who fatally shot a puppy while responding to a call is set to face a jury trial Monday in federal court. Now, this comes after he was sued by the dog's owners. Multiple internal investigations by the New Orleans Police Department, or the NOPD, found the 2021 lethal shooting of the 18-week-old, 22-pound or 10-kilo rescue dog Apollo to be in violation of the policies and unjustified. The department's internal investigators said the dog, which ran up to Officer Derek Burmster after he entered the yard responding to a report of domestic disturbance, did not in fact pose a threat to the officer. A contractor digging into the earth where the rubble of a destroyed house had been cleared away in northern Syria stumbled across a surprise. That's right, the remains of an underground Byzantine tomb complex believed to be more than 1,500 years old. Now, the discovery emerged last month in the town of Marat al-Numan in the Idlib province, which is strategically located on the route between the cities of Aleppo and Damascus. The community became a touch point in the nearly 14-year-old Syrian civil war that ended with the fall of former President Bashar al-Assad in a lightning rebel offensive in December 2024. Meanwhile, here's how local residents are responding to this discovery.
تمتلك محافظة إدلب ثلث آثار سوريا تحتوي على 800 موقع أثري.
Well, it's time we slip into a short break. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching the World Report on NDTV. Now on to some business news. We begin with China, whose outbound shipments of rare earths in May jumped 23% on the month to their highest in a year. However, Beijing's export curbs on some of the critical minerals halted some overseas sales, with shortages rippling through global manufacturing. Starbucks China will lower the price of some of its iced drinks by an average of 5 yuan or $0.70 across the country, the company announced on Monday. Now, the move comes as competition intensifies and consumers become more cautious about spending. And Tom Felton, who played Draco Malfoy in the Harry Potter films, is all set to return to his role on Broadway now. Felton will join the cast and crew of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child on Broadway starting November for a 19-week engagement through March 2026. Here's Mo.
Well, I'm yet to do it, but yes, Draco is back, or at least in my shoes, but a much older Draco. He's actually the same age as me now. He's 37, and he's a parent. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the show, but it's a very different Draco than the one the one that I grew up with. So I'm excited to relive it, but also to move forward with a whole other chapter of his life.
Well, that's all we have for you on this Monday edition of the World Report. Take care and have a wonderful day.